screen, click the mute button, and you'll see a line go across your microphone. I'm going to do that now just to demonstrate. So if you just maybe between your chatting, practice, take a moment to identify that icon, microphone icon on the bottom left.
I'm Byron Ravenscroft.
Hey, Marian. Hi.
Hi, Phyllis.
How are
So
you?
we'll give it a couple more minutes for more folks to sign in. We have 57 by my participant count at the moment.
57.
57.
Hello, Marian.
Sounds good, Chuck.
Richard Sherman. Marian, Richard Sherman.
Oh, great.
Been a while.
Where's Richard Sherman?
They won us.
Familiar names. Haven't seen in many years.
Is Wayne there too? Lori?
He's on the phone right now.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Hi.
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm living here in Texas. I served in Otis from 68 to 70.
How about a table?
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah, come over and see how
I'll meet you in the ball.
James?
11:30.
Marian, do you ever hear from John Rood anymore?
He's on tonight.
I'm on. Who's asking?
John Rood, Richard Sherman. It's been a while.
Yeah, Richard.
How are you?
Fine. How are you doing? Been a couple
Very
of
well,
years.
thanks. I live in Florida. I live in Florida now.
Well, I live in Carmel, California. The opposite side.
Good.
All right.
remember
I
you
think
lived
part of
in
our
Salem,
program is
Oregon.
to allow people to reconnect and chat. And I'm glad that some of you had that opportunity to do that. My name's Chuck Creeman. I'm one of the board members of the Ethiopian Eritrea Return Peace Corps Volunteers. Welcome you tonight to our presentation. On behalf of the entire board, thanks to the 68 participants who are signed in. I'd like to first mention the board who's put this program together. Includes Karen DeWitt, Tosh Umash, Stephen Christopher, and myself, and our esteemed officers, and really the people who do the hard work, the Chris Conley, our webmaster, Randy Marcus. I haven't seen his name. Randy is our treasurer, and I'll just make a quick plug. Memberships and donations for Ethiopia Relief are certainly welcome, and Randy is your person to contact.
I'm here.
Do that online or send checks to Randy's address. Our esteemed Vice President, Leo, and Cindy Mosca, our president. So just the logistics again. Let me, at this point, everybody except Leo, Cindy, and Marian should be muted, and I will mute as soon as I finish this brief intro. As you know, your board of directors is sort of tried to give direction to this group as the Civil War conflict raged, and we all were sort of down, feeling sad about Ethiopia's situation, and of course, there's no Peace Corps there, but we turned to humanitarian relief as an important aspect of what we can do. And I'm proud to say that we have, Randy can correct me, we're somewhere in the realm of $35,000 collected to date. And working with our partners at the International Rescue Committee, Save the Children, and Doctors Without Borders. There's Randy. Hey. In addition to doing this humanitarian work, the direction we took is a decision that we should be promoting Ethiopian culture as part of our role as promoting understanding of Ethiopia, the country we serve and the country that we have this long-standing affection for. So tonight's program is another in a series about Peace Corps and about Ethiopia. I'll ask again all of you to mute. And then the other thing I'll do is direct you to the little circle, a little rectangle with a tail on it. That's marked chat. So if you have anything you want to say to the group, questions you want to ask to our presenters, type in, you can direct it to everyone and just type in your question. I'll be monitoring the chat room. And at the end of the presentation, I will go through that and convey the most pertinent questions that we have time for. So I will end it there, and I will turn it over to our esteemed president, Cindy, and I will mute myself. Good evening, Cindy.
Hi, good evening. We are really pleased to have Marian with us tonight, and Leo will be introducing her shortly. I'm going to just put something in the chat.
Got your call, okay?
It's a bit of a commercial, but Neil Sabania
Anything
was
with?
our,
No, this just, Mom said to cut the asparagus and then just put it on a plate.
okay. Whoever's talking, could you please mute?
Mute, please.
I just put something on chat.
Where you
It's a
going?
follow-up to our very first virtual presentation. Neil Sabania did a wonderful job on showing us Ethiopian church art, and he and a colleague have just published a book. And you can get more information about that book by looking in the chat. There is a link to where you can buy the book. And you can even copy and paste this into a Word document if you want to. It's very simple to do. But he did a wonderful job, and a lot of people wanted to know more. And now that he's published the book, this would be a great time to find out more about it. So with that, Leo, I turn it over to you.
Okay, my name is Leo Cicchini. I'm Vice President of Ethiopia RPCVs. I was in the first group to Ethiopia in 1962, where I was joined, or where I was with our star tonight, Marian, who was in the same group. And I only recently found, Marian, that you and I both came from the University of Maryland to the Peace Corps training. Oh, Marian created the Ethiopia and Eritrea RPCVs in 1991, I think is the correct date, right? Right, Marian?
I'm sorry, I missed what you were saying.
When you created Ethiopia and Eritrea RPCVs, was 1991 at the meeting out in California?
No, it was before that. There was actually a meeting following up a conference in Washington, D.C. that I started, but I can give a little more depth on how it all happened.
Yeah. I still don't recall how I became vice president, but somehow that's where I wound up.
Nobody else wanted it.
Is that what? That answers my question. Anyway, Marian is here to talk to us about EERPCVs, plus the Peace Corps Writers Group and the publication of books by Peace Corps volunteers. So I think with that, Marian, I will turn it over to you and we're going to ask you some questions, but you can start with a little introduction if you like.
I'm good for your questions.
Okay, I've been given the first question, and we want to know a bit about your experiences in Debre Bahan in the early 1960s when you first got to Ethiopia.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. In Debre,
Yeah, no, well, I just think this is going on. I mean, what are the options for this?
Wait, just a second. Julie, Julie Matthews, could you please? Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead, Marian.
As has been said, I was an EP1 and was assigned to Deborah Burhan, which turns out to be, if you ever meet an Ethiopian and you say, "Oh, I lived in Deborah Burhan," the first response is, "Oh, it's very cold there." It's about, I think it was like 9,200 feet above sea level. And so we were a group of 12, all assigned to Deborah Burhan. And I actually have some photographs here. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but this is a group. And it consists of Lynn and Mary Lou Linman, Russ Mishaloff, John Rex, a gentleman named Cheru Terefa, who was, I don't know if you know, you crossed the situation, but there were Ethiopians who just love Americans. And this Cheru Terefa was a college student who was doing student work in Deborah Burhan. And he sort of adopted us. And he was a fabulous guy and ended up moving to Atlanta, Georgia. So that's him. And Ron Kazarian is also in the photo. Our one of the mates for us, True Worko, is here. Carol Miller Reynolds, she was one of my house mates. Next to her in the photo is Camilla Chickering Moore. Sadly, Camilla has passed away quite some time ago. Next beside Camilla is Jerry Beil, who is mugging in the shot. And after he came home, he sort of disappeared. And plenty of people have tried to find him, but we have never been able to contact him. Next to Jerry was Francis Fisher LaCroix, who was my roommate. And Francis sadly now has dementia and lives in the state of Washington. Excuse me. And with the glasses in the middle is Bob Savage.
Ciao.
And Bob Savage was sort of, I know us as, we were really a fan of the group in Deborah Burhan. And Bob sort of, I don't know whether it was just because he was the biggest, but he turned out to be kind of the father. And,
I think we have his address somewhere.
got some problems. Here's us, or the group for Halloween. And here's Bob Savage as Santa Claus. Wait a minute, I'm having a hard time figuring out which goes which way. There he is. Savage, when we had a Christmas tree, and to those of you who came later, we were described as the boys and girls of Deborah Burhan. And it was the girls' house. The girls' house had all of the women living in it. And then the boys had 3 different houses where they were scattered about a bit in the town. I'm not going to call it a city because at that time, Deborah Burhan was about 10,000 people. I think it's the last time I was in was there, it was at least 4 times as large as it was when we were there as volunteers. We were all teaching at the secondary school level, and there were 2 schools in the town, and one was Haile Marian, which was the academic school, and then there was the teacher training school. And most of the teachers were at Haile Marian. I was taught math. The only good thing I got out of my my math degree was being able to to teach math in Deborah Brahan. Camilla, what had been a elementary school teacher, but so she actually turned out to teach in an elementary school at the same time. I was actually thinking about her, just wondering how that language thing worked out. At that time, our students, many of them had very decent command of English, so we were all teaching in English. And it was a lovely town and such great people around us and so on. And I'll just sort of cut to the ending. I mean, near the end of the first year of school, it turned out that students in 3 of the classes, 10A, 10B, and 10C, went on strike. And I was one of the teachers of those students. And it was a crushing blow. I have a photo here that I had dug out just to show. And I had written on it for my family. This can be one of my classes. All I can say about them is that they are a delight. And I felt that way at that time. What ended up happening was simultaneously, all of the students in those 3 classes walked out of class. And the strike lasted for a while. It turned out that Harris Wofford came up to see what was going on. For those who don't know who Harris Wofford is, he was the country director. And actually, I mean, it's funny because I've done some reading about the Kennedy elections and so on. And Harris was like number 3 man in the planning of JFK's election, and was the one who suggested that JFK contacted Martin Luther King's wife when he was in prison, and which turned out to be a great electoral help. But back to this, back to the strike. We were just really crushed about it. The 4 teachers that were involved in the strike, and
Marian, you got on mute. Marian?
You muted.
Cynthia, you'll have to unmute Marian.
Oh, I did it. I was able to do it. Hi, Pat.
Hello, everybody.
No talking. So my second year, I ended
Zimbal.
up, pardon me?
Said Zimbal. Zimbalachu Arbach.
Where a feet hit an hour Groswell. The four of us who were involved in the strike were just crushed. And we had, the girls had built a volleyball court in our yard so that students could come and play, which they did. And all of that just sort of got erased. And I ended up transferring to the teacher training school for the second year, which was just down the hill from Haile Marian Mama. And it took me a while after I came home to sort of really get over the strike. And what ended up happening is right now I live in Oakland in a neighborhood that is filled with Ethiopians and Eritreans. And so I have great times, I stand beside a couple with a baby in a stroller and say, but I'm through Lidge. I'm hard. And it's great in that respect. And then some of my students, even some who actually had gone in with the strike, have come to visit me here. And at some point in time, I asked Tashoma Teklasion, I don't know if any of you recognize that name, but he's a great friend. And I asked him, Tashoma, what caused that strike? And he said, I'll call Fikru, that's Fikru Kiffel, in Seattle, and ask him. And in Tashoma's slightly imperfect English, he said, yes, Fikru has memories. And Fikru did have the memory, and it turned out that the whole strike was organized by some of the students who were doing badly in class. And they were afraid that they were going to flunk. And if they flunked, they were out of school, certainly. But none of that was told to us. And it still bothers me today. So that was the way it was in Deborah Burhan for me. And as I said, our family of PCVs, I think I've been thinking so much about talking here, and just that family of Deborah Burhaners, I think, caused me to want to keep contact with everybody in the Peace Corps.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
I have stuff for Rachel, but I'm not going to give.
So that was sort of my story about Deborah Burhan. While there, actually, Francis and I went to Egypt during the summer break, and Camilla and Carol went to Egypt and had great times. And we did some traveling, but it turned out we missed a whole lot of Ethiopia at that time. Next question. Or if any comments about my statements?
Why don't we go through the questions first, and then people can come back and ask questions, and Chuck will monitor that.
Okay.
So, in what major ways did this experience impact the rest of your life?
It's it's all of my life is Peace Corps. I had the great fortune, actually, I mean, now I'm going to go into the whole thing about how I got going on the newsletter and so on. John Coyne, who was supposed to be here tonight, but had some bogus excuse not to be. When we went back to, after our service, a lot of volunteers went to and settled into Washington, D.C. And among them, myself and John. And John actually was working at the Peace Corps. He had gotten a job in the Peace Corps. And I was working at the Office of Education, as it was called then. And he ended up, anybody who knows John the slightest knows that he's an incredible schmoozer. And so he ended up schmoozing a job for me at Peace Corps. So I ended up for the next 4 years working at Peace Corps. And I was working in a department that was record keeping and statistics and reports and those kinds of things. In fact, the irony of it was the woman who actually had was the first one in that department. She named the department Reports and Special Studies. Now, if you just think who else has RSS as the initials? She cleverly named it after Robert Sargent Shriver. So that's what we did there. Well, one of my hires turned out to be a fellow named Donald Beil, and he had just come back from Somalia. Well, things moved on, and actually, he's my husband now. And at this point, I keep telling people, I don't think I could live with a spouse who also hadn't been in the Peace Corps. I mean, that's where I'm at on that kind of thing. And then John was always filled with ideas for me. And the next idea, I ended up working, we moved out of DC. I ended up going to school and getting a Master of Fine Arts in Weaving and Textile Design at Rochester Institute of Technology, where Donald had gotten a new job. And I did weaving and all of those kinds of things, all the while wishing there were tons of weavers in Deborah Brahan, and I was always sort of curious about it, but never did anything. But anyhow, so at some point in time, Donald ended up getting into personal computers very, very early in the world. And he started writing books and on Peace Corps, topics about the computers. And he would say to me, can you draw a couple of, if you remember, flow charts, which was the first way of starting to plan how to program a computer. And flow charts were just little rectangles connected to each other, almost like a family tree. So I started working on books with that very simple way. And after a while, I actually, among other things, I also realized I'm not only forever Peace Corps, but I'm a volunteer. I volunteer to do all kinds of things. So along the way, I have done costumes for community theaters and high schools and a variety of things, but I wasn't making any money. And and slowly I ended up, it turns out we were living in Rochester, New York. And Donald was working for Kodak. And I ended up getting some assignments to do some designing of books for Kodak manuals. And it all, pardon me? It all grew, and then Johnson & Johnson is also there, and I did illustrations for books for Johnson & Johnson, particularly for the blood analyzer. But it has just grown so that at some point in time, Boyne said to me, you know, you got all those computers up there, meaning up there in Northwest New York. You got all those computers up there. How about if we start a newsletter? And I said, yeah, well, why not? And we did. And we've actually been working, and that started in about 1979. And we've been going forever since then. Initially, we published a print newsletter of 4 pages, and then we went to 20 pages, and then we started thinking, oh, maybe people will pay for it. Well, they really didn't. And so we switched over to a website, and then we are now with Peace Corps Worldwide, which is essentially a blog. And the two of us have been doing it ever since. John is the contact man. He's always somebody, you know, wants to know, oh, how do you get those stories? John digs them up somewhere. I think he must have a search on newspapers for articles about the Peace Corps or something, among other things. But he's also incredibly friendly, and we'll talk up. And he had ended up very early. John himself is a writer, and he was writing. And he wrote books. Oh.
Look right in, tell them what I'm thinking about breaking up Ethiopia. No, I can't do that.
And is somebody interested in talking?
Takes Sechel, a real intellectual, to do that. Because all we're doing here is hearing old stories.
Hello, somebody should be on mute. Anyhow, so Coyne and I ended up doing that. In the meantime, he also is the one who got me going on E&E. There was a conference, and it was while he was still living in DC. He got together with another RPCV. I can't recall her name. She wasn't in one. But they sent out notices to as many volunteers as they could contact and knew addresses of, and they sent them a questionnaire to be returned, talking about what they had been doing since they left the Peace Corps. And that was basically the first publication that I actually prepared, which was a catalog of probably, I don't know how many people, maybe 50 or so. And among other things, I ended up having to teach myself how to type in order to do that. So, but I'm still, actually my typing is getting worse now. But you start one newsletter, you start another newsletter, and actually John was very friendly with a fellow named Tim Carroll, who was the very first head of what now is the NPCA. And very early on, I mean, I didn't even know that there were groups of volunteers around the country, which John introduced me to, and he got me into the whole E&E thing. Excuse me. And so both of those things have just grown. And to this day, I mean, I work every day on Peace Corps stuff. I don't know whether you want me to jump ahead on doing books or not. What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
I had a question, Cindy. I don't know. I think Marian has already answered it, but we wanted to know what motivated you to bring E&E RPCVs together.
Well, it was, you know, the gathering of that first material, and I ended up being a total maven of databases. So I just did, you know, I just scurried around, and anytime I, you know, heard somebody's name and their email and they were from Ethiopia, I added them onto the database. And actually, I still have it, and I think that I have about 4,000 names on that database. It also includes addresses, towns where they were assigned, years that they were in country, and so on. And so if you ever want to know something about somebody you haven't heard from, you can give me a line of requests, because I still am keeping that database. I don't know what database the group now has on its own, but I still kept the one that I had through that time.
I'd just like to chime in. It's Phyllis Bravender to say it's been wonderful having all that information from you and John, and wherever it is he digs it up, and just having the whole database thing and the books. The whole thing's been fabulous for me, and I know for a lot of other people.
The whole books part of it, thanks, Phyllis. The whole books thing came because John had schmoozed with a bunch of other writers. I don't even know how he hooked up with them or not. But he ended up knowing people who had written books about their Peace Corps experience, and a few of them actually got published by real publishers. But there were a lot of people. I mean, the theory is that every Peace Corps volunteer has a book in them, and the larger publishing companies really aren't interested. And so, I mean, so part of what we've been doing with the newsletter and all the things that came between is basically promoting the writings of Peace Corps volunteers. Now on the website, if you look at the website, it's called peacecorpsworldwide.org. And if you go there, it's just filled with articles about writers, by writers, and the promotion of their books. We get people who review books for us. If any of you are interested in reviewing books for Peace Corps writers, I'd love to hear from you, because it's kind of hard to get reviewers, and reviews are really important to make a book sort of really get a jump on things. But very early on, when I was starting with the database for the writers, I ended up connecting with Amazon. And Amazon, it turns out, I mean, people have different feelings about Amazon and, you know, they're ruining everybody else and all of that kind of thing. But Amazon was the first place that you could go to find these obscure books by Peace Corps volunteers. And so every new book that I list on the site has a link that actually enables Peace Corps worldwide to get a little bit of a payment, a slight payment, but it's not much, but links right to the page of their book. And so if you're on our site and you click on a title, it goes right to the page where you can buy the title. And it's been just a marvel for having publicity for the writers. It would, you know, things would never be like this for making it all. It turns out that during the pandemic, everybody started thinking, oh, I'm gonna write that book about my Peace Corps experience. I can't tell you how many books have been, I would guess at least 40 books have been written during the pandemic. And we also promote those books regardless of who publishes it. But some years ago, I actually had the idea of us having an imprint. So now we have an imprint, and at least 40 books have been published by our imprint about the Peace Corps. And it actually makes me feel good because I'm really big on the third goal. And so there, in my opinion, there's no better tool than a book about the Peace Corps experience to really let the world know what the rest of the world is like. And following in on this whole thing about starting the imprint, I actually had started designing books as well. And so I do that as well. Essentially, I don't do anything but work during the day. Sadly, Phyllis, my dog Frankie died last week, but it was me and Frankie and the computer has been my life for many years. And it's all been about the Peace Corps. Any other questions?
There's one question. Go ahead, Leo.
Well, I think we want to leave some time for questions from participants, but how about just one last question? If you could interview any author, living or dead, who would it be and what would you ask?
Okay. First of all, I'm glad you brought it up because you had a couple of other questions about books. And these are all books that I actually designed and edited. This one was by Will Siegel, a dear friend from an Eth1 who had, I'm getting a hint from Donald. All of the work that I do on books, I charge a very small amount of money to edit and prepare books. And I donate it all to the Hesperian Foundation. I don't know if any of you know about the Hesperian Foundation. If any of you know about Where There Is No Doctor, that's the organization that produces that. And they provide healthcare books to any third world country that asks for a book at no cost. It's really a great charity. And I actually ended up finding out about it through a gal named Lee Gallery, who is an ETH volunteer a couple of years after I was overseas. But JFK and RFK made me do it. It's a terrific book about by a friend who was a volunteer in Peru. And while he was in Peru, Robert F. Kennedy and his wife actually traveled there. And so shortly thereafter, Kennedy started campaigning. So when the author, who likes to be known as Sweet William, he ended up volunteering for work and worked on the Robert Kennedy campaign, and was living in Los Angeles at the time that Robert Kennedy was murdered. And that's detailed in that book. And then this one, as I was first saying, was Will Siegel, who was has since died. His wife had a party for him as he was failing, and she sent photos around, and there Will was holding up this book because it had taken him a long time for him to.
Marian, you froze.
That's years. It's not. Oh dear. She doesn't know it.
Let me send her a note.
Yeah, who's got a phone number?
There you go. Oh no.
If you got a phone number, you can call.
Yeah, but is it hers to fix or some?
Well, you don't know until she tries.
No, it's not Zoom. It's something's going on with her internet connection.
Everybody else is still moving.
The book that she is holding up, I had the good fortune to review. It's a fabulous book. Based
Can you hear me now?
I think now we can. Oh, there she is.
Okay. We missed you.
You're okay. You should be okay.
You're fine, Marian. Yes, yes.
I can't hear myself. I can't. Is there a volume on it?
Yep, we can hear you, and you're right there.
Okay.
Don't eat your glasses.
Anyhow, that was Will Siegel. And then there's another terrific book that I found really interesting. It's another book that I designed and edited. But how many of you all know that there was a smallpox eradication program in Ethiopia with Peace Corps starting in 1970, in which the smallpox was eradicated in Ethiopia by these teams of Peace Corps volunteers.
Yeah, you have
And-
Vince Radke on the phone right now. I was one of those volunteers. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's terrific stories by various different, of course, it was all guys. They were going to the farthest, there it is. They traveled everywhere in Ethiopia, places, and were able to eradicate that disease. So anyhow, that's that spiel. Oh, the author that I would recommend is Paul Theroux.
Oh, yes.
I'm seeing some heads nod. Paul Theroux was a volunteer in Malawi. He is incredibly prolific. I actually have to confess, I don't read books anymore. But I actually work out on my rowing machine and listen to books. And so I just recently listened to a book of his where he had traveled in Mexico. And it is just so fabulous. And he does incredible research. He's traveled all over the world and he goes and he stays. For example, for this book, he ended up going and then giving a class for a couple of weeks. And suddenly all the students in the class were his new best friend and told him where to go and all. And so he was, right in on things. But he's just a fabulous writer. And today I tried to find out how many books he has published. 79. And the writing is beautiful. It's not like he's not grinding it out, as I say. So if you're looking for one, I say Paul Theroux.
Marian, I have one last question. I recall several years ago having lunch with you in San Francisco when you looked at me and said, Leo, I'm leaving EERPCVs. And I said, Marian, you are EERPCVs. We've tried to keep it going, and I hope we're doing a good job keeping EERPCV still alive.
Good. Well, I'm glad it is. I really am glad it is. It's was my pleasure to get to know, and thank you for. Weren't you the one who organized the trip back?
Yes, trip back. You mean the return to Ethiopia? Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for that, because that was one of the best things for me, because one of my sons actually came back with me, and there's Sue Aiken who did this.
Yeah. My daughter came. So it was great. I think your daughter and my daughter.
It was a fun trip. I wasn't when I first talked to the airline about how many were going. I said, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 people. When that plane arrived and 100 people came off of it, we were the talk of Ethiopia for a few days.
Yeah.
The headlines were simply the 100. Yeah, no, it was a great trip.
I actually also want to mention, just because I love the photo. I don't know if you noticed the photo of me with the red hat and the announcement about this get together. Yeah. Well, I actually went to Ethiopia a second time.
Oh.
And I went with Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, fantastic.
And guess what? The build was in Deborah Burhan. And that's a picture of me throwing chica on the side of a house being built.
Fantastic.
It was the funnest time. Okay, now,
I know this is Marian's moment, but I wonder if Bill Canby is on the line still and could say a word. And
oh, that'd be lovely.
Hi, hello. Yes, I'm on the line and I'm enjoying the presentation, especially the pictures of Deborah Burhan. But it's, I can, if you want me to, I can start the video too.
Oh, you're on.
Yes, I'm here.
And your lovely wife behind you.
And still interested in, we think a lot of Eritrea and Ethiopia all the time.
I'll never forget Bill coming out to the traffic circle in Tessene, Eritrea, and directing the traffic, of which there was none.
A few donkeys, maybe.
Okay. And I remember Tessene too. And you and Jerry Springston, I think we're out there together.
Yeah.
Do you remember delivering, I think it was corned beef in a 5-gallon can to McKelly that first year that Ramadan and Lent came together and there was no meat available for volunteers?
I do remember. It was, well, those were great days. And they say that every Foreign Service officer always loves most the first post he had. And my first post, of course, was in Eritrea. And I think there's a certain amount of truth. It's just a natural inclination. I remember more about Eritrea and the people there than ever after. Even when I went down to Addis to become deputy, the downside of that move was that I had less contact with the individual volunteers in each of their locations. And in the first year in Eritrea, I had a lot of contact and I got around to see all of them all the time. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And Leo was there.
Yes. Yes. I don't know if you ever knew it, but remember you bought all kinds of furniture and furnishings for the houses. And you got these sheets. We didn't know where the hell you got them, but they were nicknamed Candy's Canvases.
I didn't know that.
Canvases.
Okay.
All right. So most of the chat has been commiseration among volunteers, and people have wanted some of the links, and we'll just save the chat and have it available with all the links. Marian, the one question that was asked, if you could get us be a little more specific about exactly what you do for and how you work with an author that has a Peace Corps book. What should they have? Where should they be in the process? And what kind of guidance and assistance do you give an aspiring author?
Well, if you're really serious, I mean, first of all, you have to have a manuscript. And it's they come in, burps and so on. So it takes a while to get the, a manuscript that an author feels, well, at least it's done. Then what ends up happening is if you would want to publish with Peace Corps Writers, which is the name of our imprint, we charge $150 and it covers all of the costs we actually give book awards every year with monetary rewards. And we have charges for keeping our websites up and so on. And then basically the idea is that the author an author would give me a sample of writing, preferably a chapter or two, and I would read it over. I have to admit, I attribute the fact that I'm a real stickler about grammar and everything from Miss Brunelli in the 10th grade. But I'm a real editor, and then I'm a real designer, and you're welcome to go online and look at books and see what they look like. But basically, the way it works is once the book is done, it needs to be cleanly edited by somebody who's not your brother-in-law. And then you need to hire a layout design person to actually make the book happen. And lo and behold, Amazon, to their running in for the helping, now has something called Kindle Direct Publishing. And books can be published. You can upload a book onto Kindle Direct Publishing. And the way it works is you upload it for free onto Kindle. You establish a price that you want to charge for the book. There's a charge for them producing a book. And I don't know if you've ever heard of print on demand, but each one of these books is printed one by one. There's no having to buy, 50 books for your garage and so on. Beautiful, beautiful quality and so on. And I have lengthy instructions for authors. If you are interested in just looking at that, I'd be glad to send it to you. But it talks about things about what an author gets out of publishing with us or with me. I'm the sole person on the imprint. And it's information on how the copyright page has to look. I am very careful about them.
I am, as soon as I can say something.
Professional books. And so I'll be, as I said, I'd be happy to send you the instructions, any of you who are interested in even thinking about, doing a book.
Thank you very much. One other question I had for you, Marian, it's not the printed word, but there's been an oral history project, and there's
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, and perhaps
Yeah.
Some of the oral history could be the germ of a book. I mean, you take and expand on what some of the pieces were. And one I would commend to you, if you haven't heard, they're now available. Some of them are available for listening online. I think they're at Vanderbilt or someplace. Patty Garamendi, John Garamendi's wife, did a recording, and she just, is a wonderful person and a wonderful speaker, but her tales are quite well worth your time to listen to. I don't know if she's ever thought about turning it into a book, but the Patty Garamendi is one that I happened on and had to listen to and found it fascinating.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I have not availed myself of those. I know there's been a couple of burps of trying to get that oral history down. I think one fellow was doing it and then passed away, but I think somebody else has now picked up on it. Pat Wand, are you involved in that?
I am, Marian, and thank you for asking. Yes, it's called the Peace Corps Oral History Project, and we have about 500 audio tapes at the John F. Kennedy Library. Some of those are analog and some of them are digitally accessible so you can listen online. But just in the last 2 years, we are working with the
5-9.
University of Kentucky, the Nuns Center for Oral History. And it has now at least 500, if not more, video recordings of Peace Corps oral histories. And all of the video recordings at the University of Kentucky Nun Archive are available to listen online. And many of them are also indexed. So if everyone on this call, if you have not yet had an oral history, it's time. If you just Google Peace Corps oral history, you'll come to the website. You can learn how it is conducted, and you can sign up to be interviewed. It may take a few months to do the interview, but someone will get to you. It's an all-volunteer project, and the University of Kentucky is working with us without charge, which is amazing.
Yes, Gloria Curtis interviewed me for the JFK oral history, and I think they're on cassette tapes. But I think they're trying to digitize those cassette tapes so they're available. I think mine it's been digitized, but the audio quality is pretty poor.
Yes, we can do better quality now. But as long as I'm chatting for just a minute, I want to personally thank Marian and John Coyne. I am working with the Museum of the Peace Corps Experience. And both John and Marian have been very helpful with us. Our goal is to compile a comprehensive list of Peace Corps authors. And we have it now cataloged, as many of those names and titles as we can find. And I'm putting into the chat the link to that list. It's called Peace Corps Authors. And it's, if you again Google for this one, you can Google peacecorpsmuseum.org, and you'll learn about the museum and the projects we're undertaking, but also about this wonderful database that is really built with the contributions of Marian and all of her work on on the bibliography she's been talking with us about. Thank you, Marian, for all the work you do.
My pleasure. It really is.
Okay, and we are going to have to bring this evening to a close, but I also wanted to thank you very much, Marian, and I wish John were here so we could thank him also for all that he's done. My last question is, are you mentoring anyone to take over your work? And what would you look for in a person who might be interested in doing that? And although I know that there are some here who are not retired, but by looking around, I'd say there are many who are retired. So how would you recruit someone who's not yet retirement age to take something like this on?
It's Phyllis Bravender. I think you're not going to find a person who's going to do what Marian has done and continues to do, because it really is all day, every day. And I think the expectation would be a bit high for anyone else anyway, but let's hope that there is someone.
Well, and it might not be one person. It might be several people who would be willing to learn about some of what you do. Has anyone like that come into your?
No.
No.
There's a number of facets to what I do, and I have multiple databases and lists and those kinds of things that I maintain. For example, with the Peace Corps writers, we have a list of all of a list that only Peace Corps experience books. Then we have a list of people who've published 2 or more books. And so those kinds of things are going on. I'm a very experienced computer designer. I can make a terrible Photoshop photo look good. I have a great eye for layout and design based just on my sort of design. I had design training while I was doing textiles all those many years ago and so on. So I think it would take a couple of people to be able to do what I'm doing right now. I'm not saying that they're welcome to try, but yeah.
Well, I wasn't so much thinking of them as freelancing, but perhaps being mentored by you. And maybe that's something to think about.
Okay. Thank you.
No, we want to thank you very much for giving all your time, and not just to this, but for being willing to do this, and for everything else that you do. Because as you've been talking, of course, I'm thinking you would need a whole committee to take over what you do. But we do appreciate everything that you've
Great.
done.
Great. Well, as I say, I'll put in my bid for reviewers at least. So, I got John Rood. Fantastic. It's each one of those things, and I just wanted to mention, I was looking up about Paul Thoreau today, looking up how many books he had. And I put in a question, how many books did he have with Peace Corps as part of the subject? And the first thing that came up was an article by John Coyne in 2011 on Peace Corps Worldwide. The whole smear of going through and talking about how Thoreau works, and it ends, actually look for it because it has a very telling ending. That's it.
Leo, do you have any last words?
Thank you very much, Marian. We enjoyed this. It was great. Good to see you. And again, I hope you find our work with keeping EERPCVs still going to be to your satisfaction.
Great. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. And we will try to post this so that you can come back and revisit it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Cynthia, especially.
Thanks, Marian.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.